morning and welcome to Retirement Tax Matters. I'm Adam Reed. This is Garrett Crawford, our resident CFP. This is the moment that our normal listeners, our regular listeners would say, he's going to ask, how are we doing this morning, Garrett?
Yeah.
But not this morning. We are throwing a wrench in the game plan.
Surprises in store, right?
Surprises in store. And so we've been kind of upgrading the studio, doing some different things. And, we've been getting a lot of emails or submitted questions through our website, retirementtaxmatters.com. We've even had some different people reach out wanting to become clients. And we thought it might be cool to, one, give kind of a look under the hood of, hey, if you're working with a tax return driven financial planner, what are they doing? What does that actually look like?
Question.
What kind of software is that? Because some people are trying to learn and do-it-yourselfers. Some people are looking for an advisor online, and we take clients. We enjoy working with. We've added a few clients through this podcast, and we enjoy working with you guys. But then also, we wanted to kind of do a case study that might be helpful. We had a client reach out the other day, and you can give us some more information on that, but just said, hey, here's kind of my situation, and I'd just like more information. And so we thought this would maybe be a pertinent idea or pertinent topic to more than just this person. And so sometimes they're very niche and it's like, okay, let's respond to this person individually. But sometimes there's some cool opportunities to maybe serve a broader group of people. So why not jump into the software? We're going to do some screen sharing, some very futuristic stuff going on here today. And so Garrett, I'll let you kind of take it from here and let us know what we're doing.
So sure. Just for any compliance regulators out there, actually, I think you said it was a client that reached out. This is just somebody that was a listener. Mm-hmm. I don't actually know. There's a lot of missing gaps. I'll talk about that. But one thing I had a thought of as you were talking about, Adam, this is one of those episodes, we release this on YouTube, we release on Spotify, Apple Podcast, we have a website. This is an episode where a video feature would probably be really important. And so I'm going to do my best as I go through this today to describe it. So if you're on the subway, you're on the train, you're in the car, listen to this, hopefully it's not a totally lost episode. But kind of one exciting thing is we put these on YouTube, and I think this would be, form fit for that content. But just recently, we switched over on Apple Podcasts to doing videos as well. So if you're on the Spotify ecosystem, you might hop over to Apple Podcast if you wanted to watch this one. And, hopefully we're bringing video back to Spotify. There's some limitations there, but I think there's a lot of great ways to view this, but I do think video would be a really helpful one. We'll have a lot more, traditional episodes where it's just kind of Adam and I talking, but as a kind of AV audio tech nerd, this was a fun project to try to figure out how to get all these cameras and the computers set up. And
as a non-AV tech nerd, it was fun to watch Garrett get it all set up.
Yeah.
I just kind of sat back and was like, okay, cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Well, if the moment has arrived, how about we just jump into this, okay?
Let's do it. All right. I'm going to see if we can make some magic happen here.
Well, why don't we do this? First, okay. I want to go through just kind of some of the information about the person that reached out. This is an anonymized person. This is not their real name. This is some information they shared, and here's what I'll say that we kind of know. Tim and Ann will be our subject matters for today. Tim and Ann are married, so that means they're married filing jointly. They are both age 63. I'm pretty sure he is 63, and I'm taking a guess at what his spouse is. And just to keep things simple today, we're going to assume that they're the exact same age. Turning 64 years old in September of 2026, so almost birthday time for Tim and Ann. And they reached out, and they said they had $5 million in 401ks and traditional pre-tax IRAs. They also have $1 million in brokerage and savings accounts. They didn't give a breakdown, and we'll talk about that in a second. Between their Social Security checks, both for him and her, and then another pension that they have, the total amount of those guaranteed incomes, $85,000 per year. And Tim said he wants to retire at age 65. I don't know how much flexibility Tim has, but he's mentioned 65 as a big number. And his question, as he reached out, was should they consider delaying their Social Security and pension checks to age 70 so that they could get more out of their traditional IRAs and 401k, these $5 million accounts that are growing. And I got the email initially, and I emailed him back and said, hey, we have a great episode on this. It's called Leveraging the 22 and 24% Tax Brackets for Strategic Roth Conversions. And he said, well, that's actually what I watched. This would be a follow-up question. He's not necessarily mentioning Roth conversions, but instead he's just seeing that he's got a lot. Well, they're saying that they have a lot of money in pre-tax IRA accounts. And when you hit these numbers, we talk about 2 to 8 million are the people we're talking about. You hit the upper side of that 5 to 8 million, and diligent savers, they start to realize when they see a year of 10% growth on $5 million, that's $500,000, and they think, well, that's not our lifestyle. And so it kind of starts to ring true that they've got to do some thinking of how to get money out of that IRA because it's all taxable. So the question here today is not necessarily how do I do Roth conversions up to the top of the 24% tax bracket. It's more, I've got so much IRA money, and then I've also got these large guaranteed pensions. What should I be doing here? Should I be taking those pensions now and letting the IRAs continue to grow to have a lower baseline income, or should I go ahead and delay those guaranteed pension and Social Security amounts until as late as possible and start pulling out money as fast as possible from the IRAs? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the setup I was given, and that's generally not enough to do what we're doing. And so if we could solve a problem like this in a 30-minute podcast, we would be great financial planners and probably fortune tellers as well, because we don't know everything. But so I'm going to kind of build a couple assumptions around this case. And first, I'm going to say that Tim and Ann have no debt. It would be striking to me if they have a $6 million savings and they're carrying a mortgage or something. But we're going to assume that they have no debt. We're going to assume that it'd be really easy here to say, hey, they live in Tennessee, no state tax. But we're going to assume that they are Indiana residents. And then we're also going to assume they have 2 kids. I have no idea, but let's assume they have 2 kids. The kids are independent. They're good kids. They're trustworthy kids. There's nothing kind of wild and shady going on. And that, like a traditional married couple, their parents are going to leave whatever money's left to their kids 50-50. And then I'm also going to assume that the $1 million in brokerage and savings accounts is probably not all in cash. And so that's going to be relevant here when I go into the tax planning software. I'm going to assume $150,000 in cash at the bank earning no interest, and then the rest of that, $850,000, is just invested in a S&P 500 index fund where they're trying to prioritize long-term capital gain. And then I'm also going to assume that Tim is a single income earner, and so I don't know, maybe it's a joint income. I don't even know what their salary is, but we're going to assume that Tim makes $340,000 a year, and that is coming from Tim, and that Ann is not working. And I'm going to assume that Tim and Ann give to charity, but not enough to itemize. And kind of lastly, they're interested in maxing out the 24% marginal tax bracket. And so we didn't really talk about this, but Adam, I know you're not Tim and you're not Ann, but as we go through this kind of scenario, if you think of something, you want to throw a curveball in there at me, you feel free to do that.
Sounds
and
good. So
for our listeners, it's kind of all live. And my disclaimer here, I'm going to put a couple on the outset. One, financial planning is complicated. In fact, I was talking to my dad the other day, and I said, I'm 13 years into this. And one of my biggest takeaways is that financial planning is a lot more psychological in how we feel about money than it necessarily is a calculator. And today, we're going to be talking like a calculator. And so without Tim and Ann sitting here with me, I don't know what their current health is. I don't know how long they're going to live. I don't know their legacy goals per se. And those are all really important factors. I don't know if they think Social Security is going to go bankrupt tomorrow. They see these Social Security trust fund reports and they're ready to dish it out. But long story short, my disclaimer here would be I'm not trying to actually solve this question. I'm trying to give a behind the curtains look at, okay, here's a general framework. Here's how I as a financial planner would begin to approach this to try to answer a question. I'm not a tax preparer. I am not giving specific tax advice today. For Tim and Ann, if they were sitting here, we would be talking to their tax preparer to make sure that our numbers are correct. We're not missing anything. I would be reviewing their 2025 tax return just to see if there's anything that they're not telling me. And then I also think about whether it's 20 people out there or 50,000 people that end up watching this. You're probably going to be able to nitpick or say, well, maybe that's not exactly right. And that's kind of not the point. I haven't spent 10 hours looking at this. I came up with it like 3 days ago, typed in a generic scenario, and we're just kind of go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think,
I think people to kind of see the process and even go to our website and the year-end tax planning checklist, kind of how do you implement that? What does that look like? And just showing too, kind of this is how we, if somebody were to become a client, this is how we'd work with them. This is what we'd be doing behind the scenes as we prepared for annual reviews and stuff like that. So, and also too, let us know down in the comments, do you like this form of content? Do you like more of the just kind of discussing different topics? Do you like the hands-on? We're open to feedback.
Yeah,
we want to do things that serve you guys well and grow the channel, reach more people and serve more people. So, all right, you ready to do this thing?
Yeah, let's do it. Hit the
all
magic
right, here
button.
comes some magic. Boom! Welcome to the MacBook.
There you go. Okay, so I use tax planning software. It's called Holistiplan. I've answered this question before, and I'll try to get ahead of it in the comment section. It's Holistiplan, Holistiplan. You can go out, you can Google it. It might be the secret ingredient to what you need to do all of this by yourself. But my hunch is, or my feeling is that tax planning software, once you know enough to use it, you might not need it. And I think this software for Adam and I, this is how we scale to multiple clients. It's a way for us to easily log in, generate reports, show things to clients. But this software called Holistiplan was kind of revolutionary for me 6 years ago when we first started subscribing to it. And it basically proved to me as a financial planner that working through people's tax returns provided a lot of benefit. And so here's what we're going to do. This is not like the most cool part of the software, but I live in this, and this tax planning software, they call it a scenario analysis. And I've got a scenario up here where I'm building my prediction for what the income of Tim and Ann might look like in the end of 2026. So if you've been around the block with us for a little while, we always talk about that December 31st deadline. And the idea when we're building a income estimate for this year in 2026 is we're trying to help Tim and Ann figure out what their income is going to be at the end of the year so that we can start to answer these questions about what does our income look like now while we're still working? What is it going to look like when we're fully retired? And what about when those pension and social securities kick in? And so for the next 10 or 15 minutes, I don't know how long this will take, we're going to step through those 3 different time periods very briefly, very 50,000 foot level, and see what income looks like today at age 70. And then also we'll start to consider what RMDs start to look like. So Tim and Ann, here we go. It's 2026. I've selected that here in the tax planning software. We've told them that you are a married filing jointly on your taxes. Neither Tim nor Ann are age 65 yet. They're 63, turning 64, so they don't qualify for the additional standard deduction. I'm going to assume they have no dependents right now. Maybe they have some younger kids, maybe they don't, but I'm going to keep it simple and assume their kids are older and grown up. And down here, I have input total ordinary income wages for Tim at $340,000 for year 2026. So we're not talking about retiring this year. It's a full 12 months of work. Tim didn't tell me that's how much he earned. I'm just trying to create a kind of general picture. And for a lot of people, they can concentrate on this income level of $340,000, and they forget about what we've talked about in other episodes, the phantom income, that invisible income that comes from their investments. And when you're somebody like Tim and Ann that has $150,000 in cash and $850,000 in an index fund, you run into 2 really important income items, and that is interest and dividends. And so I came up with $4,500 the other day. I think I took the $150,000 and gave it like a 3 or 4% interest rate return, and then some interest from other items, and I came up with $4,500. That is all like additional ordinary income, kind of just like their wages. If they're in the 22-24% tax bracket, that $4,500 gets added as additional ordinary income. But then when it comes to dividends, this is one of those items that get pretty complicated. You can have two different types of dividends. You have ordinary dividends and you have qualified dividends. If you could pick between the two, you'd really want qualified dividends. Those are taxed at a lower preferential tax rate. And so in this case, I'm telling the tax software they have $12,500 of total dividends, of which $12,000 of those are qualified dividends. So total dividends $12,500 and $12,000 of them qualify for the lower preferential tax rate. I have no idea if this is Tim and Ann's case. If this qualified dividend is very low, we would want to talk about that. We'd want to see if we could figure out how to get more of their dividend income as qualified income. And so as they're still working IRA distributions, I'm keeping it zero. They're not pulling any money out. They haven't started those pensions yet. They haven't done any Roth conversions that I'm aware of, and they haven't started Social Security. Then we get down to short-term and long-term capital gains. And this is subjective. I have no idea, but sometimes people, like in Tim and Ann's situation, they need to buy a new car. They need to do something. They might not keep a ton of cash in their bank account outside of their emergency fund. And so where do they usually go to get that money to pay for a big expense? They'll pull it from a brokerage account. So it may be they're adding some money to that $850,000 and they pull it out during the year. So I'm just saying that they have a $20,000 long-term capital gain that they generated this year from their investments, and that's a lower preferential rate and just a little bit of short-term capital gain. And from there, things get a little simpler. There's not a lot else going on. They don't have rental properties or farm income or something like that, a separate business. And we see total income $377,250, the same as adjusted gross income. And then we see that they're taking the standard deduction of over $32,200 in 2026. That lowers their taxable income down to $345,000. No alternative minimum tax in this situation, which means of that income that they pay this year, $67,574 in total tax. And I'll show you a quick picture here in a second. And I'm not going to go into it in this episode, but there is a material part of this that is state taxes. And in this tax planning software, we can say they live in Indiana. Here's their adjusted gross income. It goes through and calculates it. I'm not super familiar with Indiana tax, but I could figure it out if I need to. And it says of that money they made, $11,070 would be state taxes and the tax rate. And that would be this year. And one of the cool things that this tax planning software does
in the day and age of YouTube shorts and reels and dopamine hits, if you're still hanging out with us, you are officially a tax nerd alongside us. We are getting to the fun stuff now.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the cool charts and where they take all of the tax return information and they package it in something that's more palatable. So normally when we're with clients, this is what we're hanging out in now.
Yeah, so this screen is where I hang out, and then this one is where the client hangs out. So a lot of times clients give me like 50, 60-page returns. They're like, I've never looked at this. Good luck. And they think it's going to be a really laborious job for me, and why would I ever sign up for that? But it doesn't take that long for me. But then we look at this page that is a summary, a beautiful summary of that 50 or 60-page tax return. And a lot of these numbers are exactly what I said. Total income, $377,000. They took the standard deduction. They owe this much. And this is one of my favorite parts of this report. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it just shows you where Tim and Ann are this year income-wise and what tax bracket level they're in. So we can see they're in the 24% tax bracket. They've gone through the 10% bracket, the 12% bracket, the 22% bracket, and they're $101,650 into the 24% tax bracket. And so what's helpful for me as a financial planner is I can see they're $90,000 away from the top of that 24% tax bracket. So this is I'm going to stop here with that scenario because this is their working years. We're actually talking about what's coming down the pike, but I just kind of wanted to set the stage that if Tim and Ann might be this traditional couple, they're already in that 24% bracket. They have a little bit of room. Maybe they should be thinking about a Roth conversion or pulling money out this year because they're older than 59 and a half, maybe the rule of 55, the 72T distributions, but maybe it doesn't have to wait till they retire. Maybe they start doing something now. And so I'm going to go back to this advisor screen and I'm going to say, we're going to bump up in time here. And I'm going to hide that one to make this easy. Now we're in 2028. We're in the future. Who knows what's happening here? And I've just changed these numbers a little bit. I've told the software they're 2028 tax time. We're assuming some inflation growth in the tax brackets. I've got Tim and Ann. Hey, we've passed that magical age of 65, so now their standard deduction is a little bit bigger. Big missing item. Now that Tim is retired, you don't see that $340,000 of income, but they're still earning some interest and dividends off those brokerage accounts. And actually, I'm going to pull this off. Oops. If I didn't know what I was doing, I would have left this off till later. But we've got interest and dividends from their brokerage account, and then we've got pensions in here, $21,000. And that would be part of a pension that they could take if they wanted to. But let's leave that out for now. And so we have no pensions, no IRA distributions, and then we've got Social Security in here. We're going to leave this off. And then
they went from making pretty good money to beans and rice, it looks like.
That's right. So we've got no Social Security, no IRA distributions, and basically what we're going to find out is if they don't take Social Security, they don't have a lot of income. And so, again, just double checking myself, we've got fully retired, no wages, no Social Security decision has been set up yet, and we've gone in here standard deduction. And so then we're going to look at this tax report, and it's going to be pretty small. And we're going to see they barely have any income. So Tim and Ann, they better do something. They better either pull money out of their IRA or they should start Social Security.
And to remind people, we've been through some numbers, but kind of I think the two thoughts they have is, do we take the guaranteed income earlier and then supplement along the way with our IRAs, or do we take a lot more out of our IRAs while we let those stable fixed incomes grow to higher rates? And that way we don't end up with maybe as large of RMDs.
Yep. And so let's do this. I'm going to go back through here and I'm going to add some Social Security income and pension income. We'll do 21,000 and 64,000. I'm taking a guess here what the distribution is. But if they start Social Security and their pensions, they would actually start it in 2028. I'm doing 2028 because that's the first full year that they're retired. This year in 2027, which is when they turn 65, would be a partial year. I'm trying not to show that. And so here in 60 or in 2028, they've got all of this income. And if we take a look at this, now we're seeing some income report for Tim and Ann. And so it's $67,000. They do have a standard deduction. We're basically in a scenario where we're definitely going to have to add some IRA income probably to hit the limits of what they need for spending money. And so what I want to do next is I want to pull out, let's take a look at age 70. So I'm doing a second scenario where we're bumping out a little bit more to age 70 in tax year 2032. And similar situation, we're now in 2032. Married filing jointly, they're both age 65. We've got the same situation of interest, dividends, total dividends, and we've got pensions and Social Security has grown between those 2 years, and because they're waiting until 70. And if they wait until age 70, we've got a situation where their income is growing, they've got a higher baseline, and again, we've got a lot of room before we hit the top of the 24% tax bracket. I want to pause real quick before we go any further in that, and I want to talk about required minimum distributions. And so we have an episode, if you go back in our catalog, it's called the Six-Figure RMD. And for Tim and Ann, that's something that we need to be aware of. And as I go to schwab.com just like anybody else could, and you can type in your date of birth. I'm taking a guess here at September 1st, 1962. Typing in a $5 million balance this year, spouse as primary beneficiary, and you can see it says your first RMD at age 75 will be $312,000. And I just thought this would be good to show. Estimated rate of return, I don't know what their investment risk tolerance is. I'm being conservative here, so if they're aggressive investors, which they might be, it'd be higher than this. But if their investments returned 4%, this is an important number to know, that if we go out to 75, $312,897. We can go a few years into the future, and we can see where RMDs, that green distribution line, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Let's see where it crosses $500,000 at age 91. That's going to take a while, but to go from 312,000 to $500,000 in RMDs, that is something that Tim and Ann are rightly thinking about. They might not need all that income. They probably don't. And so the question here, if I back out, is there anything we can be doing now to get money out of the IRA account so that the RMDs don't grow so big? And I think the answer is yes. So I'm going to go back to this scenario, and it won't take much longer than this, but this is where we take a step out from, purely math, and, maybe it's more behavioral, but when it comes to Social Security, it depends on what people think about that. I think in the grand scheme of things, survivor benefit's really important. The fact that it's got cost of living adjustments added to it each year is a really important feature. So while it's not the biggest asset for Tim and Ann, it is a really important one. And I think there probably could be a lot of wisdom here. Let the cat out of the bag of delaying Social Security and the pensions until age 70 so that we can get more money out of the IRA. One gotcha catch here is because they're both the same age, that means Ann would have to wait and take a spousal benefit until Tim also turns 70. So hopefully there's an age difference and maybe Ann is younger. But if they were both age 70, perhaps we wouldn't wait until age 70 to file, maybe 67, 68, 69. But the age difference very much matters. But in this example, we're just going to assume that they delay everything until age 70. And so let's go back to...
And just to clarify, the thought there is that, okay, those fixed income portions are going to grow, and we'll take more out of the IRA so that when they reach 75, that number is a little bit lower, so their RMD is lower.
Sure. And so back here at scenario 1, 2028, their first full year of retirement, I have this other view that's pretty cool. It's called the range calculator. And this is what allows Adam and I, as we're working with clients, to figure out how much we could convert to Roth, or in this case, maybe not convert to Roth. It's just pull money out for living expenses and without triggering additional Medicare IRMAA charges. And so what this chart shows is the tax impact of the next $1,000 of pulling money out or doing a Roth conversion. And so if you watch my cursor go across the screen, if I go to the $100,000 mark, you can see that down here below in that black box. But if I convert $100,000 or withdraw $100,000, there's actually even though they'd be in the 22% tax bracket, it would actually be a 24.6% net cost because they would be losing that enhanced senior deduction where the no tax on Social Security, that phases out as your income grows. And so if you pulled out $100,000, it would actually be a 24.6% cost. I think in Tim and Ann's situation, I know these are a lot of taxes down here. You might ask what those are. That's a conversation for a different day. But we are not in a situation where we just need to pull out $100,000 at a $5 million IRA. I won't go too deep into this, but as a financial planner, I would say there's a lot of subjective good things you can do financial planning. You line 5 of us up, it might be something different, but there's also objectively wrong bad financial planning. Objectively wrong financial planning would be converting or withdrawing an amount just over these dotted lines, which represent a Medicare IRMAA threshold penalty. So if we decided to pull out $127,000 and we triggered that first level of Medicare IRMAA, I think that's bad financial planning. And so for Tim and Ann, when I look at this picture, what I'm thinking is I really value the 24% tax bracket. The jump between 24 and 32% is huge. And I'm eyeballing this Medicare IRMAA line. It cuts off at $318,000 of additional income. And if somebody said, hey, let's just max out the 24% tax bracket, you could maybe convert an extra $40,000 out of this person's IRA to Roth, or just pull it out. But you're going to trigger that last level of Medicare IRMAA, which is $6,355 per person per year. And if I was talking to Tim and Ann, I would be looking somewhere probably around this $300,000 mark, and split that up however you want to. As much of that is income for spending needs, and then whatever's left over, we should be thinking about converting to Roth. So why don't we do that, where I go back in here and I use $300,000, and let's say Tim pulls out $200,000 just for IRA distributions for spending. And then we can go through and we can do a $100,000 Roth conversion. And so if we do that in 2028, when they're fully retired and they don't have that earned income anymore, I can now go back to the tax report, and I bet this is going to look pretty good. But we are now back up to $392,000 total income. Taxes are about the same. And as I look at this picture, you might say, well, I thought we were going to go to the top of the 24% tax bracket. We could, and that's a discussion.
Now we're on Medicare.
But now we've triggered that extra Medicare IRMAA charge. So I think people can fall into that trap. Hey, I'm just going to convert to the top. I'm actually open to that discussion of doing it, but I want to show you that maybe we don't need to do that.
Is that chart down below where it kind of shows that?
So
it's the next one, isn't it?
Yeah, so we have the Medicare Part B and D premium, so you can see we're right up next to this $410,000. I gave a little bit of room. Maybe dividends and interest are going to be higher. Maybe we take a capital gain. And for all you nerds out there like me, you're going to say, well, how do you know what that or the IRMAA limit's going to be? We actually don't. It's always 2 years behind. And if I use this number here, we're estimating out for inflation, and we're going to guess that it grows a little bit more. But as a financial planner, I try to come in a little bit below those numbers because I don't want something silly barely triggering that next IRMAA level.
Especially those last couple levels. The first couple levels maybe aren't as punitive, don't hurt as bad, but those last couple levels, you feel them when you hit them.
I think so. And so I've got another one over here. I won't really dive too much into it, but I think this is kind of maybe more the ideal scenario where the Social Security you've waited. And I won't go through it. I think we're getting a little long here, but basically your baseline income is going to be a little bit higher. So your Roth conversions or IRA distributions that you pull out are going to be a little bit smaller. But for me, I think that's a great trade-off for them to wait so that they can get more money out or do Roth conversions. And it really comes back down to what I started off with. This is not just a math question. It's a psychological, how much do they want left for kids? And I think that's a really important discussion. So again, I didn't spend 10, 12 hours on this, but I was looking at it the other day, and one of the things I came away with, and I did some quick math, we were talking about RMDs that would be in the order of, over $320,000. I was coming up with, if we did this aggressive strategy where we were pulling out $300,000 a year from age 65, 66, all the way until first year of retirement, which was 73, those RMD numbers would be somewhere more like $150,000 to $180,000 per year. And if we combine that with maybe some charitable giving they want to do in the future, at the end of the day, it's all going to come down to investment return. I'm using 4%. If it's 8, 9, 10%, we're probably going to end up in that 32% bracket at some point. But if it were me, I'd be leaning just based on very basic information for Tim and Ann. Hey, let's delay the Social Security and the pensions.
Yeah, it's funny, Garrett. We have a lot of our younger clients that are like, oh man, I need more 10, 15, 20% years. But then our older clients who've done all the saving, they've gotten all the growth, they're sitting in retirement thinking, gosh, things just keep growing. I almost wish I had a 5% year, so I didn't have these bigger RMDs and bigger price. So it's funny how our perspective switches as you get more towards trying to spend down and be tax efficient, and it's good problems to have. And I think most people viewing this content, people that are in this target demographic of $2 to $8 million in IRAs and brokerage account, I think most of us understand these are good problems that we're trying to solve. But it is funny how people's perspectives switch from those working career years to the retirement years. And so we're just trying to help optimize those things.
Yeah, sure.
But I think I'll link down below. I think we've got a giving video at gifting. We've got a video on the 6-figure RMD that I'll link, and then I think there's one too on some Roth conversions. That
I think
might
we
be
hit
helpful.
about 15 or 20 different episodes that we've done.
I'm just going to link all the videos we've ever done for this one, but I think that's a good place to maybe land the plane. I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. Hey, go to the website, submit a question. That's down below. Send us an email. We love to interact with you guys. We love to answer questions. That's where this episode came from. We thought it was a good question.
My favorite part of this, that was me doing a soliloquy for 20 minutes. The best part of this is when you're going through tax planning with somebody. They start to see, okay, I like that, I don't like that, and you can kind of shift the conversation in real time, and then they say, well, I might buy a house, I might sell a house, and so this is really a collaborative effort. But I think for a lot of people, they just enjoy seeing the curtain pulled back just to see how it works. That's
one of my favorite stories. I first got into the industry and was meeting with this girl. She's crushing it, making a lot of money, and we said, hey, this kind of makes a lot of sense if you're kind of on this track for a while. And she said, oh, yeah, there's nothing on the horizon, no changes coming. And she called me, I think, 3 weeks later and said, hey, so I just put an offer in on a $750,000 house. And back then, that was like a mansion. Yeah. And she's like, and I'm going to have all my friends with me. I'm going to rent it out, so I have rental income. And we were like, I thought you said nothing was going to change. And 3 weeks later, her whole life had changed. But that's life. That's what we do. That's who we work with. And it's normal. So it's fun to do it kind of on the fly like that. But I think that's probably good for today. We covered a lot of ground, but feel free to drop questions in the comments. We try to respond to most all of them. Sometimes videos from way back, we can't get to everything, but we try to respond to you guys. Submit a question to the website, and we'll get you an answer.
Okay, so sounds great.
All right, I'm Adam Reed. This is Garrett Crawford. We're Retirement Tax Matters.
Thanks so much for listening to Retirement Tax Matters. As always, the ideas we share here are for educational purposes, and we do our best to get it right, but this isn't a substitute for specific tax or financial advice, because a truly effective strategy is always built around your personal situation. For more resources and to see our full disclosure, visit us at retirementtaxmatters.com.